Hello and good afternoon. I am your host, Lord Captain Commander Dunn, and I am going to be playing Hades while helping Ninjato work through some of his story ideas. Speaking of which, we should probably bring our other guests on. Drake is also here, but we will bring in Ninja first.
Hello.
Yay. And returning from yesterday's Alpha Clash, please welcome back Mr. Drake the Duelist.
He's going right for the crew!
Oh, OSMS team.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, actually, at this point.
I would say OSMS team is the best of the OVAs. OVA.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk
Overall.
up 83 as well.
Stardust Memories. I
Which was the Camphor War in the Pocket? That's the really good one.
Yeah, War in the Pocket is probably like the second best, but Stardust Memories started off so great, and then a dumb twist at the end that ruins an entire subplot.
Well, that's Gundam not being able to stick its landing.
Oh, it didn't stick its landing on the most important subplot hard. It was hard. It soured my taste of that show.
Well, speaking of subplots, how about yours?
Okay, so my idea of I do kind of like isekais, and and I'm a big fan of mecha ever since I got into them. So I wanted to do my own take. It was partially inspired by Cross Edge. And just to sum up the quality, you know Gundam Seed? You know its reputation? So it was
I helped make its reputation.
Yes. Okay, so the guy who directed that, after doing Seed Destiny and unfortunately the passing of his wife, then went on to make Cross Edge. Which I hear it's mixed things about. But anyway, I decided to do my own take. So, where to start? So the basic idea of my plot, for the main plot, is that it's about... I try to do it as condensed as possible. So there's like 3 primary characters, and I have like a general idea, but I would like to develop them a bit more to get them full fleshed out, so I can make other characters to bounce off of them. But the idea is that as a critique somewhat of the isekai genre, the main character is not a teenager. He's an adult, and he does not have... there's no like special powers, or he doesn't have like a skill set that actually helps him. He's a janitor. Are you guys listening?
Yeah.
Okay, and so in the world is a blend of Bronze Age fantasy with mecha. And the main magic system is runes and then music. Where the most common form is people ingraining runes onto objects or even skins to make spells, essentially. And then the second, like more hidden one, which is more the higher tier, is using music to overload the runes in a sense. And like the music is more tied to willpower, so that's like your more super robot side can come in.
Okay.
So like I'm like at the start, I'm thinking of it at least a trilogy. Can easily expand into more books, just amount of stuff but essentially book one is like your standard isekai story where the main character gets brought into the world. He has some adventures, but because of his personality, he makes a big oopsie and got a character killed. A character dies, and then he learns to be a bit more serious, or he learns to grow up in a sense.
Is it like from a specific flaw that got a character killed, or an action, or like inadequacy?
I'm thinking. So my idea right now is that his personality is more like if you watch any of the old Get a Robo or Mazinger, like the super robot show's protagonist, that Senji is kind of almost a critique of, like kind of the opposite. Where they're a bit more of the hothead. They're kind of hot-headed. My idea was, okay, what if the hothead type character had a dream and it was dashed?
Okay.
Sense. And thus he has that desire, he has that energy potential, and then he decided not to pursue it, ends up working as a janitor, then gets isekai'd, and that is when that trait becomes blossoming, and then you deal with the problems of having a headstrong protagonist. Another important thing about this world is that the main bad guy is quote unquote the deity of the world, but he's not. Backstory stuff complicated. But the main bad guy essentially kidnaps people from Earth to become isekai heroes. Like if any famous historical disappearance in history is actually this guy bringing them over to this world, like the two boys in the Tower of London under King Richard III. Instead of them being killed by King Richard III, they actually got teleported to an isekai world in a different part of the continent.
And you're gonna die.
Okay.
Yep.
Question. You say like the protagonist is headstrong, so why didn't he accomplish his dreams before? Is he like he used to be headstrong but isn't anymore, or vice versa?
It's more of like his dream was to be with his best friend. I talked to Wolf about it. It was originally going to be his brother, but then I edited it to his best friend because of a plot point related to the love interest.
Yeah.
Essentially, the dream was they were both going to be like pilots, and then his best friend becomes like a pilot of this experimental mech. Something seemingly went wrong, and the guy died in an explosion.
Is this after being isekai or before?
Before. This is like the backstories that kind of set up his beginning parts.
Okay, so he was isekai from a world that already had mechs?
No, he was isekai from a regular world.
Okay. So in the regular world, his friend was a pilot? So like more conventional Air Force kind of thing?
Yeah, conventional Air Force, or it could be like a civilian.
Oh, like a jetliner.
Yeah, like a jetliner, or like some sort of plane. But essentially, it doesn't matter where he comes from. But the point is that they were both trained to become pilots. The best friend got ahead, probably because he's older, slightly older than him. And they kind of basically grew up together like brothers.
Yeah. And
the best friend seemingly died in an experimental jet for a company. And that kind of disheartened his dream, essentially.
Okay, and then janitor.
Yeah, and then he becomes a janitor after that kind of.
Gotcha. Just getting the timeline straight.
Yep. I'm trying to get. And then the important thing for the fantasy world is that actually that best friend is revealed not in book 1, maybe definitely in book 2 or maybe 3, depending on how long the series is, was the previous hero before our main character. Shenanigans, okay? Just shenanigans happen. But right now I want to kind of focus on book 1. I'm trying to keep it simple. I have like overarching plans on that, but that's essentially like the twist. One of the big twists of the general series is that, the previous isekai hero that everyone was talking about, who did these fantastic thing, was actually.
Can I ask you to pause for a sec, because Dunn's about to do something? Nothing terrible, but so, Dunn, I only came in here to tell you one thing. For future reference, there's 2 kinds of damage boons. One's base, one's percentage. You want percentage for your heavy stuff, and base for your little arrow move, because that's how it gets most effective. So you screwed up on the Zeus one, and you're lucky this one didn't give you an Aphrodite boon that ups damage, because she's the highest damage one, percentage-wise.
Whoops.
Just future advice. Go for either the cast or the spare. Those are decent.
Look, it's a roguelike. You're supposed to screw up at the beginning and learn.
So... Okay, so this or...
I would not recommend doing that one right now. I don't think that would help you very much.
So this one?
Yeah. You're not using your cast very much, so that might give you a reason. Lessens damage for anything it hits. About to leave, but if this one gives you a Zeus boon for your special, take it. Never mind. It didn't even matter.
Well, I was close, but I got far enough, so...
No, you didn't.
Well, it's still fun. No, you will get progression in terms of plot. Either way, as long as you talk to people with that exclamation point.
Yeah, so he can be scolded at by his dad.
By the way, this is the best interpretation of Hades I have seen in media.
Unfortunately, not hard to do.
Yeah. So, okay, anyway, so that's like the general timeline in like before this stuff, at least for the main character. So the thing is that his general arc is like him reigniting that passion, and then realizing this world is the humans, the big human faction that he's kind of part of. Don't like outsiders. They call all outsiders, aka every other fantasy race other than dwarves, demons. They're super racist.
So it's like the dwarves are obnoxious racists this time instead of the elves.
No, the dwarves are actually cool. It's the humans.
Oh, I thought it was like the dwarves.
The humans. The dwarves are so few. Okay, in this world, they had it so much like in Warhammer. They had an empire. Except it was a lot worse than what happened in Warhammer Fantasy. Most of them seemingly died. Due to a cataclysm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but...
So, how did the main character get isekai'd anyway?
Okay, this tied into the other character. So think of a teenage boy who grew up in the priesthood to worship, and their gods are the god mechs, essentially. Like, think of you got your regular grunt mechs that are like Votoms. Do you understand what a Votom is?
No.
Think of a more real robot version of a Gundam. Even more. So you know how those mobile suits are real robot enough? It's even more so. And then the Godmans are like lower end, like Gundam. Like a protagonist Gundam.
Like a proper Gundam, not necessarily a mobile suit generically.
Not necessarily. Some of them could. It's a range, but think of like the one our main character probably ends up with is like the Gundams from the 08th MS team.
Yeah.
Like, so not like the RX-78, but some of them are that powerful. And then others gets to the levels of like ridiculousness, like a Gorilla God. Or like
ridiculousness. Real ridiculousness, not like Destiny.
Yeah, that ridiculousness. Like actual power, like my spoiler for the final boss in book 1 is a based on an Ava unit.
Like in terms of its size?
General. So I don't know about size yet, but in terms of like power differential.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, this real robot, this main character has to use this real robot to take down a super robot. And not just any super robot, like a ridiculous one.
So Iron Man versus Thor. Dink, dink, dink. Uh-oh.
Pretty much! Well, no, not even Iron Man, because Iron Man can actually withstand a couple of hits. Maybe Batman. Batman with his regular setup. Regular setup, not like pre-planned.
Not like Batman setup.
Yeah, not the I'm the death battle.
More like
setup,
Cap then.
Yeah, Cap. Okay, yeah, Cap America versus Thor. Like, it's doable, but it's not. But it's there's gonna be a lot of pain. And I already know how.
It's like he could put up a fight, but it's very clear he's out of his league.
What kind of make will be in your story? It's actually going to be a huge range. So at the start, book 1, it's going to be primary focus on your think of like probably not an Imperial knight, like an armiger. If you know Warhammer 40k, kind of like an armiger.
Mm-hmm.
Battling.
Aren't armigers just a little bit bigger than like the whatever the new dreadnought is?
They're big. Like, essentially, it's like the idea is that it's not like super ridiculous power. I wanted to have like an increase in power level.
So we talking like house scale?
Yeah, house scale, building scale. Like, this is like Bronze Age cities. We're in kind of like a Bronze Age type setting.
Okay, so we're thinking more like 172 scale rather than 144th scale. More Code Geass, more Kyokai Seiki, less actual Gundam where they're actually like 4 stories tall.
Right, yeah. Like, those are reserved for the god mechs.
Okay, so there are things that size.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be something that size. And also, I do not want to, at least in book 1, want to emphasize air combat.
Okay, so things are too heavy to fly around. That makes a certain amount of sense.
Well, they're not too. It's not like they're too heavy. It's just the technology does not. It does not showcase it either because of cultural differences. Yeah, like Titanfall. That's a good one. Thinking Titanfall. Like, it's either it can be that, or the way I'm thinking of how the rune system works is that it's flexible enough. It has that limitation of like you have to ingrain it and like hammer it in on an object to change the properties of it. And then some materials you can say like wood. If you like make a mech out of wood, it could fly because wood is lighter than metal.
Okay, another
But it's not
question.
as durable.
When you say like god machines, are you saying like they're like they have like a bunch of holy motifs, like they're big giant angels, or do you mean they're like so huge and overwhelmingly powerful that anybody who has them might as well be a god?
I called god machines because that's what the people of this world. So the background, my idea for the background is that think of in the real world, Atlantis was a thing. It was a massive empire that uses Magitech technology. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm just doing stuff that I don't really want to explore much in the story. It's like one of those like, here's the lore book.
Yeah, understandable.
But in this world, Atlantis was an empire. Then they decided to experiment with teleportation through the spiritual realm. And then that created the conditions of Atlantis, the actual city, not only sinking to the sea, but also was parts of it was flung across the universe and onto another planet. And then as part of this civilization, they had the mechs in that civilization were essentially like guardians. So think of like from Atlantis, the Lost Empire, those guardian mechs, golems. They were kind of like that, and they had multiple functions, and they were at a ridiculous power levels, and there were so few of them because the process to make them has long been lost. They can only make lesser versions of them.
Hence, like the machines that aren't gods. Right.
Yeah, and thus the people, hundreds of years, curated by the main bad guy who's immortal, in a sense. Like, he's like elvish immortality. So, you can still kill him.
Yeah, it's like ageless, but still killable.
Like, yeah, he's ageless. He is hard to kill because of his knowledge and all of everything.
Yeah, gotcha. Zonger kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. But he's, so that's essentially, so each city in this world, at least in the human kingdom, which is, I'm thinking of a composition of various Bronze Age civilization from Egypt, Assyria, Hittites. I'm trying to pick cultures that have not been explored much in fantasy worlds. Like, I am so tired of Germany, medieval Germany.
Oh, really? What has medieval Germany been in?
If you look at every Japanese isekai,
I gotcha. Yep.
Like, Japan has a huge
Deutsche Boner.
Yeah, they have a Deutsche Boner of Germany. If you look up any of their isekais, there's most likely going to be a German name in there, and the system might as well be the Holy Roman Empire. And then it gets ridiculous about it. And then, not to mention, of course, when they want to make a cool bad guy faction, they just rip up the Prussians or the no Germans.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I am so sick and tired of that. I want something different. You know what?
I thought you were saying like the ancient culture is more exploited in like Western society, like your Egyptians, your Greeks, your Romans, your Vikings.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do Greek. I'm gonna try to be Greeks and Romans, kind of be way less restricted. I want to focus on what I love. I love the Bronze Age, or what is called biblical times. Maybe some Greek elements. I'm thinking at least the main character's mech is gonna look like an actual hoplite. and then you put a crossbow on the shoulder, a giant like ballista on his right shoulder.
So are the weapons technologies essentially more like concussive or like hard weapons than blasters and lasers?
It's not real. It's more
so
physical.
IBO level.
Yeah, it's think
like
IBO
missiles?
level. For the mix, it's basically IBO level.
Yeah, so it's like the high end are like missiles, explosives, occasional mass drivers.
No, not even that. Like they're stuck with melee, bows and arrows.
Oh, so it's like if everybody was Barbatos.
Yeah, everything was Barbados. Everything is Barbados. Everything has to be physical in some way. The only exceptions is like, with the rune system, somebody could theoretically make it a way so you can have like a laser, like more of like Stormhawks?
Yes, I love Stormhawks.
Yeah, you know how the crossbowmen?
Yeah,
Or
he
like
has,
how when they shoot laser, like those small laser bolts? Like that's
Yeah.
at most.
where they have little crystals as the propeller.
Yeah.
types.
Like you could theoretically make that, but it's not featured, at least in this one, because my idea is that the first book takes place basically in a border kingdom. Like the background in this world is that there was one big empire, and then the previous hero was there during a time of a civil war, dynastic problem. He helps reunite. He defeat. Then the demon king, quote unquote, of like another nation tried to invade. He got defeated. That part of the empire got absorbed. That country got subjugated. The hero disappeared. His lover, who becomes the love interest in the story, in the whole trilogy, was the Empress. And then political shenanigans, and she kind of went crazy a bit. Became like a very despised. She ends up getting banished to be part of the demon kingdom that split off. Again, she got banished. And that was like 15 years after the main hero there. And now, after the deposing of the Empress, all the kingdoms just split apart. It's now just a bunch of city-states with their own like governments ruling, and they can be forming alliance to attack each other and gain more land. Like think of like the situation in the Bible in Genesis. If you look up Genesis 14, where you have like alliances of kings.
Could you set the context of that? I don't read the Bible like
in that. Okay, so in that Bible, essentially, Abraham's nephew Lot gets captured as part of a big civil war. Not a civil war, like a big conflict between one group of kings and another group of kings. And then Abraham was like a third party to rescue his son and defeat a bunch of them in a battle. So essentially, it's like, just think of, or like the Sengoku Jidai.
Yeah, that was like what was immediately coming to mind, but it's like, oh, it's just like Sengoku Japan. It's kind of cliche.
Yeah, Sengoku Jidai, ancient Greece for most of its history.
Yeah, it's like a lot of feudal periods in Europe work this way too.
Yeah. Essentially, just think of like we lost Dunn.
He'll be back.
Yeah,
Dunn's a roguelike die.
Yeah. So just think of that, and that's kind of the background. And I decided, with the help of Wolf yesterday, Wise Wolf, that the love interest is going to be the main antagonist, just to make it simple in the story in my head of the first book. And it also allows me for an easier B plot, where it's going to focus on her a bit more and learning about this hero. And essentially, she initiates a war. The war in book one is because she knows that every hero, everyone in the demon realm, which is basically composed of any fantasy race you can think of. It's pretty much in there. Like orcs, centaurs,
Ents,
Cyclops.
lizardmen,
ogres. I think Ents would be with the elves. The elves are. I'm thinking right now with the elves, they're in like a different city, part of the 15-year time graph. They end up getting into a different region. They're kind of like a colony. So they kind of came from overseas, and they're kind of, think of like a post-Roman Britain. Post.
My apologies. My thing crashed. I guess it just can't handle it for some reason.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah, I was thinking like with the elves are kind of like post-Roman Britain. That or
are they actually like really long-lived like other elves?
I don't know yet. I haven't explored much of the elves because I want them to be more book 2, tied with the teenage boy.
Yeah, the problem with elves, as a general rule of thumb, is because they're so long-lived, they have experienced a lot more like ancient history, or what would be ancient history relative to less long-lived races. So it's like the elves would be shaped by a lot of stuff that no longer is relevant to the story, but is still relevant to them.
Right. That's why I'm kind of... I'm trying to figure that out. Once I get to them, I definitely know that they're going to be heavily Arthurian legends. Like, they're essentially like King Arthur's court.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely a whole bunch of fantasy races. I know some of them where they kind of end up being, but essentially, in general, a lot of fantasy races are deemed demons in this world. And what happens that every time a Demon King comes around and becomes too powerful is that a hero just gets summoned out of nowhere and ends up assassinating him.
Is this like an aspect of the world that's doing that on its own, or is there somebody controlling the isekai?
No, it's the main bad guy. It's revealed to be the main bad guy because the main bad guy's main motivation, he's definitely inspired by the main villain from Cross Ange. He is a piece of work. It's hilarious. He is so ridiculous and petty. I love it.
So essentially, everything that is in the Demon Kingdoms is all the different fantasy races, and this includes people. And so, who is outside the quote-unquote demons?
Those that have already established empires. So you have like a group of humans right now in my head in the continent. So you have like the human kingdoms, which is on one thing. The demon race are basically in the center of this big continent. And that's where most of the story is going to be, is like, if we looked at the map, the east side of, or west side of the map, and a little bit in the center. And then on the way east is basically a kingdom that I'm inspired by Koreans. Like the Korean cultures. And then down in the south, in between all three areas, is a big desert. Like a literal sea of desert. With like one mountain range in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that desert is purposely not natural.
So it's like, was the land is it like sort of a Dust Bowl sort of situation?
It's like it's a Dust Bowl that resulted in an actual desert. And in that desert is Arabian pirates. Arabian pirates that rides on think of the Harajim as pirates.
They're the guys with the giant elephants.
Yes, giant elephants with basically a boat on top that shoots cannons. Magic cannons.
Are these elephants comparably effective against the robots?
I would say so. In my mind right now, yes.
Okay.
Just because of the muscle, they're like probably a bit taller. They are definitely probably a size of a Gundam. They're like a couple of buildings tall. It's big enough to put a big pirate ship on top.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting thoughts of essentially like a sort of machine versus monster, sort of like a smaller scale Pacific Rim.
Yeah. You definitely get that in the first book. Like the demons don't have only one god mech, and that belongs to the leader, but the rest are actually Titans from Attack on Titan. Just think that. Giants, people who could turn into gigantic monsters.
Is this like part of a magic system, which you said was music based?
No, this is more the result of it's just this race. This race can do this.
Okay, so it's like they sort of warg out.
Yeah, they kind of, It's like, this is how this race works. I'm going for more explain what this race do. I'm trying to think of like a way in terms of the actual writing to try to keep as much. I don't really like talking about like real building and stuff. Trying to keep that to a minimum and just focus on my plot and just bring up. Okay, I need to bring up this point to make this plot works.
Yeah, it's like take this with a grain of salt because I've never actually gotten anything published. But it's like when I world build, I like to do the world building. Regardless of whether or not it shows up in the story, because that way, whether the audience knows or not, you'll know. So that helps.
Oh yeah, that's why I came up with the Atlantis. My plan is like that's definitely like a lore book, but I'm definitely want to keep that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mind me.
So it's like the demons have a singular god mech, and so how many god mechs are there in total, roughly?
Right now in my head, in the story that I know of, there could be more, there could be less. One per city, and most of them are not active. And there's like 12 to 13 main cities. But there's like only two that are absolutely ridiculous. One is the Sky Mech, which belongs to the main bad guy. Because of course, in every pantheon, the air god is going to be the most powerful.
Yeah, also logistically, because essentially you have it literally has the high ground. The sky.
Well, yeah, it's also purposely ridiculously powerful. And then
because like you were saying earlier, there weren't much flying suits, so pretty much everybody's on the ground except for this one, which makes that one infinitely a lot more virtually OP as far as that setting is concerned.
The only other one is thought to be destroyed, but it's actually just can be rebuilt. And it's the Mech of the Dead.
Okay.
And it's essentially, and that's going to be like the main character's final mech. And that mech, essentially, he summons the army of the dead. Like from Lord of the Rings. Like, that's like its big thing. It's like, oh yeah, he could ask help from the dead to help out. Not only it's like at the same terms of power level equal to the Sky Mech, it can also do this. So in terms of an army, it could literally be a one-man army.
Okay.
Are we talking like necromancy, or are we talking like the spirits of the dead, or what?
The spirits, like
okay.
Look. I know Codex. I know Noble hates mechs. Noble hates a lot of things.
Noble also has really, really, really strange tastes that doesn't seem to be backed up by any logic or reason.
At least none that he could articulate.
That is fair. Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I'm trying to the thing I'm trying to work out in my head, and it's more when I actually get to writing, I want to make sure that the chariots are actually useful.
Chariots? Question mark?
Yeah. Yeah, chariot. It's Bronze Age. So it's
like literal chariots. It's like you say chariots in a setting with mechas, and it's like I make connections. Okay, there's a kind of mecha called the chariot.
That would be fun.
Yeah, it's like if you know in Gundam, essentially that would be the equivalent of a mobile worker.
No, I'm thinking of like G Gundam.
Oh, that kind of chariot.
like a Gundam actually driving in. G Gundam is like probably should not be your first Gundam, but if you start watching Gundam, well, you need to watch G Gundam.
G is the best. G is my favorite by hands down, no question.
Yeah, so my favorites in terms of Gundams is original Mobile Suit Gundam, Wing. Wing and G Gundam are tied. They're both good in different ways. I love them both.
Wing seems kind of like it's like if a political thriller had a baby with The Room.
Well, yeah, but the only reason why it's The Room is that because it was a lot of these actors in this company's first dubbing. And it's actually, so like, there are mistakes, but it's actually still...
I cracked Dunn so hard.
Yeah, you did. That's freaking... I kind of want to watch that now.
Yeah. Ripped up birthday party invitation. I'll kill you.
Oh yeah, yes. Well, you'll never. Oh yeah, one of the best love stories, and it's between. And it begins with "I'll kill you" because it's a literal assassin falling in love with a bored witch girl.
Dang. That is funny. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what Wing needs, is to just not be taken seriously.
Oh yeah, like the thing is with mechs is that you do run into the issue. Mechs are supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is weird because Gundam was designed to be the opposite of fun.
Well, it's you can have fun but still be serious. You just don't have to be super serial.
Yeah, and then there's Tamino.
Mm-hmm.
Tamino? That's a weird way. Tamino!
Okay.
Okay.
I've always
Same
heard it Tamino. Yeah, but you are correct. Tamino is probably the more correct pronunciation.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And like Tamino is like he's actually he's definitely one of the greats because he actually did write Super Robot stuff before he did Gundam. And like his Gundam stuff
and
in
after,
general,
I think.
Yeah. In terms of Gundam writers, he's the best. Because especially in the Universal Century stuff. If it has him like direct involvement, it's great. Like Crossbone Gundam. Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, but it's just Tamino has that reputation where it's like he's very much trying to kill your buzz. Because the entire point of Gundam is that it's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to make you sad because war has cooties.
Yeah, it's essentially like it talks about the cost of war.
Yeah, and I personally find that a little on the immature side because sometimes you do need to punch back on a global scale.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you don't take... I'm a firm stance against pacifism. I think pacifism is fundamentally stupid.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm of the opinion, so it's like, if you're going to war, you got to do it right. So do it right, do it quick. Not never, ever do it.
Yeah, so this is actually...
quick, clean, and efficient. Sorry, go for
But
it.
this is so that's actually I was thinking. Oh, I'll make the teenage boy the priest of the standard template for the Gundam protagonist, as like he's more of the pacifist. Like he's naive. He doesn't understand about war, or he knows too much about how painful war is, and
which is weird for a 15-year-old.
Well, he is okay. Spoiler alert! Later in the series, he is the daughter. He is the daughter of the love interest. So
he is the daughter.
Not the son. That my brain. No, I don't.
You never know with media these days. You might have been serious.
Yeah, you never really know. You can get some bad stuff.
Oh yeah, I will purposely describe him as like a femboy.
It's like all Gundam protagonists except Domon and Kashi are femboys.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Amuro, not so much. But yeah, definitely from Camille onwards.
Kira.
Yes. Yes, Dunn. Camille is a boy's name. And he's very autistic about that.
Yeah, that's like the one thing I know about Zeta off the top of my head.
The whole story begins with him being insulted by this random soldier who ends up becoming his rival. And he just goes, Camille is a fine boy's name! And then he proceeds to become a terrorist.
Yeah, Camille is a boy's name is basically his version of Setsunav Sei's I am a Gundam. It's like the really dorky thing that kind of makes some sense in context.
Yeah, it makes sense. Same with like I kill you. Like it's like one of those things in Gundams is like some lines
it's like
super like what?
In the context of Wing, that does make sense. The problem is the context is insane and it's very complicated.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you take it out of that context and you just meme the hell out of it. But in the storms of the story, there is a reason for it.
Yeah, that's like one of the fun things I'm gonna.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, so okay, so the first story, I want to. So the first story. Here's the general idea so far in terms of. I'm trying to do. Ever read "To Save a Cat" by Blake Snyder or Blake Schneider? I can't remember his name.
Schneider.
He basically wrote a book about. Blake Schneider. He wrote a book about script writing, and I'm kind of trying to take points of that to kind of make it a general outline so I can expand each chapter. So. Essentially, my general idea is that at the beginning, your first image is a Bronze Age city that is almost fallen. It's only left up like the palace and the temple. There's an underground tunnel in between them. And you got the teenage boy who is with the dwarf character. And essentially, they are the ones that kind of cause the isekai to happen. And,
I finally remember where I heard a premise like this before. Escaflowne.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I want to.
That's so cool. It's like, this is the Escaflowne. What Attack on Titan is to science and sorcery. It's the most like that, but the creator's never actually seen it.
Yeah, like, there's a ton of stuff I really want to see. Like, a ton of mecha that I don't have time. But by the way, one of the greatest, in my opinion, is Magic Knight Rayearth.
Oh, I want to see that so badly.
It is so good. It has the best twist in the middle of it. Technically, the end of the first series. It's like it is so wonderful where. It's a literal subversion story where you think it's just a typical isekai story about 3 girls getting summoned into this fantasy world and they're having fun adventures getting the 3 mechs to rescue the princess, and then the script gets literally flipped on them, and they get depressed at the end of the first series, only for the second series for them to pick up the pieces. It is great. But anyway, but essentially, yeah, so much like that, I'm kind of hinting at there's more to it, that he was compelled to summon the main character, who I'm calling the janitor right now, because I hate making names. I can never make a name stick. But and so the first thing I wanted to do where's your power hammer butt next? But well, here's the comedic moment I wanted to do. Is that he gets summoned. He's with his cart of chemicals because he was in the middle of a work shift, and you know how in the typical isekai, they would bring like a gun or like a cell phone, and they could easily overcome the situation. So as this room is getting attacked by like orcs and like other stuff, he uses the chemicals not to actually win, but actually to run away. While his left hand, which gets branded with a mark, that basically is like the only thing he gets for like an isekai upgrade is a rune stuck to his left hand that basically means Master of All. That basically allows him to access anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a master key. He literally just gets a master key. That's it.
So it's like, what is your the stuff that you're having questions on? Like the stuff that you.
Okay, so I know that point. I know that general point, how it begins. I know it's gonna end with the character dying, and him having a duel with like what will become the love interest. It's more of like trying to figure out some other side characters to kind of build the story out a bit more. Build some more character ideas to build out the story, and also some like stuff in the middle that you may kind of think of.
So it's like what comes between the final battle and the inciting incident.
Yeah, so like that.
Okay, so if there's a big empire that he's trying to bring down and is ruled by this sky mech, I would think that you would want to cameo this sky mech as you go along. It's like every so often it'll be like hovering in the over the battlefield and just watching, and then
I would not. Okay, so about that, it's the empire is already breaking apart. He's actually not like a ruler of an empire. He's like a priest of like a church, a series of temples.
Okay, because just because empires are broken apart, faiths don't work like that, so they may still hold a lot of loyalty in other parts of the kingdom, even if it's like feudally politically shattered. So is that like the case here?
Yeah, that's kind of like my idea, is that he's essentially passing him off as like the new generation of like he occasionally gets into the high priest position, occasionally just become a priest of like his local temple. He's immortal, and he's like the epitome of the Machiavellian villain. Like he's more of a schemer.
Okay,
Machiavellian. So he's more of a schemer. I'm not sure whether to introduce him in book 1 per se. Maybe like informally, like have somebody else, like have a character that kind of represents him in book 1, because I do want to have book 1 to feel more like a standalone story, so that if somebody can read that and don't want to continue.
Yeah, it sounds like he would need some kind of Mouth of Sauron-like figure where he's like his regent can go out in his stead, essentially.
Yeah, and maybe he's trying to do some manipulating, and he ends up getting killed at the end, which could start events in the next book. So
it's like
let me
the death
just-
of this priest, essentially the end point of the entire series.
This main bad guy is the main. He's the main bad guy. He's the one that's gonna get killed and set the world free.
So, I am actually not coming up with these names arbitrarily. It's not so. To give some context, what I'm actually going through is actually something from my mission. I've got a bunch of photos of missionaries who were in the Kansas Wichita mission from somewhere around like 2015 going all the way over to 2017.
Okay.
And I'm just selecting armor from my Pinterest board because they're who I'm basing these characters off of.
Okay.
So that's why I'm just since this book is basically based on my mission, and I'm just using characters from the mission. I'm just matching armor to personality that I remember / appearance. Since some of these people I didn't know personally, or know very well, but I'm able to at least say, okay, I can match a person to I can match the armor to the person, sort of. So.
Okay.
So keep going. Yeah, sorry, I just had to put that up.
So like villain regent, schemer dies at the end of book 1. So
and you could have it's like if I were you, it's like as periodically you would start seeing, because this guy's in a flying mech, the only flying mech, you'd see like shadows like fly across the ground, hinting that there is something much bigger arising, and sort of feeding into this notion that he's watching everything that's happening.
Okay.
Because that seems like something that it's like if I were a Machiavellian priest god, that's what I would do. That's a weird statement, but whatever.
Shadowy mech flying. My idea right now, in terms of the reason the main hero gets summoned is actually out of the control of the main villain. It was actually because the way I'm setting it up is that the place that he gets summoned was the last known location of his friend. It was basically a scheme that his friend did before he disappeared. Of some sort to
disappeared from the isekai world or disappeared from his world?
The previous hero before he disappeared from the isekai world, his last known location.
Is he still alive?
No, he's dead.
Okay.
He gets killed off. The main big bad did it. He schemed to have him killed.
Okay. It's the idea. It's like whenever you start hinting at somebody disappeared and you don't know where they went, and it's like my immediate thought is, oh mother.
No, okay. So basically, part of the funny part about the main villain's plan is that this all is technically his own fault, but he's throughout the series him trying to not make it his fault, because his original plan was to have this isekai hero defeat the Demon King, and then the one who would become Empress would be a Queen Elizabeth type, Queen Elizabeth the First, the Eternal Virgin Queen, the last queen of this line, because he's big into narratives.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I want to control history. Then that hero ends up
narratives.
Yeah, he wants to control history. And then the main hero and the Empress essentially became lovers and had a kid. We can't have that.
Okay.
We can't have that. And then, oh look, history's out of whack. So yeah, I do like the idea that he's like at least observing what's going on.
Yeah, there's like this ominous aura over every battlefield, so it's like no matter how hard the protagonist had to fight, there's the implication that there's something even higher tier going on. So that when he finally encounters the big bad, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want the big bad to show up in book one, but I can definitely hint at it to make it like.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's like if you build it up like that, then as soon as it lands, it's like it's gonna look insurmountable.
Yeah,
and then you have to figure out how to beat him.
Right, which involves him going on a pirating adventure in the sands. Dun, dun, dun. But
what does that? How does that help beat the Skybeck?
It's the stuff in book 2. Like it's actually does it. It's like, you know how the Empire Strikes Back. It's like the Empire Strikes Back moment. It's just part of that whole ordeal. It's like we start out with one region and then we're expanding the world.
Okay, so that kind of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. But so we got like a big bad flying around, old dwarf. I do kind of want to make. I was thinking, I wanted to get it past you. I am willing to cut this. It has been in like the early drafts, but I could cut it. The main character. I was originally going to want to make fun of the whole main character gets a harem shtick, and my initial idea is that there are women or girls that get sent into the special corps whose entire purpose is to die on the battlefield. Like,
okay.
Like, think of like Sisters Repentia, but no chance of redemption, and they get to ride on the mix because they get to ride on the mix. They're like the only. I was originally thinking, oh, they're the only ones in society that gets to ride on the mix, but not because any privilege or anything. No, that's just me. It's a death sentence.
Mm.
Yeah, so when you say like on the mech, they're like basically chained to it, like human armor.
I haven't thought about it that far. I need to go and. So my problem is, thinking too broadly. I'm trying to get the details in. So it could be that they're literally chained. But I definitely know that my original idea is that they are treated so badly that the worth of one woman in like a marriage ceremony is like 100. 100 to 1 wife.
Exchange. This world seems immensely depopulating.
Well, here's the thing. Those are actually the least loved ones. That's the reason why it exists. It's not because in general when it's the Bronze Age essentially. It's everything is in Bronze Age classical, like up to classical Greek logic.
Okay.
So if you read Herodotus, it's like, oh, it's a total bizarre world.
Yeah, Herodotus is weird. I think
it's awesome.
I think somebody actually described Herodotus as the world's first blogger.
He's also the father of history. Because he was the first one to write down accounts from various sources, from actual people, which is also one of the people's reason why historians have problems with his history is that he didn't put a filter on it to make like verifiable. So like a whole bunch of myths got in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I love Herodotus' work.
He is very interesting, I would agree.
So I was wondering, should I like change the harem concept? I am willing to cut it out because my idea is that either he accidentally get a harem or he purposely did it. If you think it doesn't match the focus of the story, I could easily change it.
It sounds like the harem could also contribute to it's like fleshing out the character of this religious order, because it sounds like they're related concepts.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And so that also brings out, okay, I need to at least have, I was thinking at least five throughout the trilogy. And one of them is definitely going to be Yandere, who betrays everyone somehow.
So like another thing that could also like help flesh them into the world a bit more than just like obvious harem, because isekai is, it's like there's the like a common trope of mecha stuff is like the support team that keeps the mecha running. So like they could assist with maintenance, because that's too much of a problem for one person to handle by themselves. And if it's Bronze Age,
you know what? That actually makes sense. That is actually, you know what?
I just stumbled on something for you.
Yeah, what if the whole point, like, there's a harem is actually a title of the crew of the pilots of these mechs?
Oh, so it's like it's just called a harem and he uses that word, but it's really just in normal speak the pit crew.
Yeah, it's the pit crew. It's garbage. They're treated as garbage. And also, they're treated like actual harem, which is horrible. Like, essentially, it's like if this was like a role-playing setting or fantasy setting, people accuse this of being grimdark. Like, oh no! Hey, grimdark! Oh no!
Yeah, it's like one thing immediately coming to mind for me is like the pit crew behind Yusei Fudo in 5Ds.
Yeah,
I wish
like Yusei's little band of friends that he has in the satellite.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The tiny girl and the two other guys.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. Okay, that would be fun just to have. Okay, but okay, definitely want to.
Yeah, it's like as soon as the guy figures out, wait, harem, and it's like, oh, harem, wink. Oh wait, you really did mean maintenance.
And at first it's like, oh, have you slept? And then like other pirates is like, hey, have you slept with it? Have you enjoyed the joys of the harem? It's like, wait, what? Because I do want to have that fish out of water. Is like, it's literally a modern man entering into this world, of like this completely Bronze Age world, and it's not like a like military men or people with like a high ambition at the start who would normally like use this situation to his advantage. It could be like it's like a normal dude. That's kind of one thing I want to highlight is like partly is like, yes, he's kind of inspired by the mecha super robot protagonist, but he's also a normal guy.
So, like, what is the central thesis of this? What is the idea being communicated?
That's one thing I'm having struggle with a bit. Actually.
Okay, yeah, it seems like you got a pretty good idea what the story is, but not necessarily the point.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the theme to kind of go around, revolve around.
Theme,
because I think
it surrounds us, binds us, and it ties the universe together.
My themes. Oh.
Yeah, it's like I was mentioning this to Dunn yesterday. It's like when I said that Alpha Clash was like an 8 out of 10 book, the fact that it kind of didn't have a theme was like the only thing separating it. So it's like, as I described for Rogue Contenders, theme doesn't make bad things good. Theme makes good things great.
Yeah, I was actually kind of talking with like one of my friends a bit because we were talking about Visipop and with the whole Has Been Hotels, and we're kind of like, we are so tired of the indie animations of like, here's a cute thing that is actually has a dark revelation behind it when it comes to indie animation. And one of the things that kind of brought up is a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it's a book that was written when television was a thing. And essentially the central thesis of that book is that as humanity went from oration, like we get our communication through just our vocal cords and like talking to each other, to more of our visual mediums, like, movie, comics and stuff, our communications has gone stupider.
I buy that. Yeah, so as far as your story goes, when I think about it, it's like what could be like the tying theme of like the story is that I'm thinking that the world should be like a reflection of some part of the characters. Like the world is like a larger, is like a sort of a macrocosm of what's going on in like the character's mind and spirits. Like you were saying originally, he was like he sort of lost his groove, and it's just like he was just a janitor because he lost his friend. So it's like if the different political fractures in this kingdom were caused by something similar or something relatable to that protagonist, and that is why they're in this warring states period where the church/cult essentially took over and replaced and essentially filled the power vacuum themselves. So, and it's like if the character could relate to like the different regents and rulers of this world based on relating to them on a personal level with his own personal experiences. It's like, yeah, it's not exactly the same as losing an entire kingdom, but it's like, I remember this time in my life, and it's like his friend's disappearance is like a huge part of his character and how it made him feel, regardless of what that character wound up doing. Or it's like, as soon as it's like he's missed his friend for so many years and he goes to this kingdom, when does he figure out that his friend became like a hero of this world? Because that seems like a huge
in the series change. It would probably be like near the like end of book 2 or like book 2 if it was a trilogy, maybe book 3. Like it's basically like a major thing that
okay,
like,
so he never realizes it.
Yeah.
So as far as he's concerned, his friend is still basically just dead.
Yeah.
And
you think, and maybe that is kind of like the catalyst of like his journey in like the future books. It's like a hint of a mystery element. But for
so what winds up helping him get his mojo back? Generally, is it just like a sense of duty? Is like he has to? There's some obligation for him.
I would probably think so. It's like, and also the opportunity to be more than what he was. It's like it's like the case of it's like for example, it's like you're living out your days, and you decide one time, just that one time, you decide to buy a lottery ticket, and you decide, okay, this is my only time. I'm gonna go for the biggest money, like the Powerball, and you buy it. You only did it once. You won it. You win the Powerball. Like what that kind of feeling is that for most, even though some people think,
you guys know I'm hitting the 15-minute warning. So
okay,
just
cool. It was So it's like that equivalent of hitting the Powerball and like instead of like with most people using it to splurge on themselves, it's like I could do so much and improve my life. So much.
So it's like he wanted to be a pilot before, so I'm thinking, why did he want to do that? And maybe he like rediscovers that reason in his interactions with all the different rulers of this world, because it seems like there are basically an indefinite number of kings and local lords and orders
Yeah.
that you could like interact with throughout the story, and each of these could then give the main character some sort of reflection on like the journey that they've been on so far in their lives.
Yeah, so my idea, one of the reasons that the duel happens at the end of book 1 is I was with the love interest angle. It's like partly the death, the tragedy that he caused with his personal flaws is like he learns the truth about what a hero means, and he does not like that responsibility of like being an assassin essentially. So definitely I can use the villain region for that, which is great as that representation. And like the final thing is that he defeats the love interest in the duel, and then basically causes a political marriage of merging the kingdom that he's somehow inherited along with the demon kingdom, forging it into a new kingdom. Instead of killing the demon king, trying to end the cycle, essentially. But it's like in a way accepting his role as the hero, but not but his own way.
Yeah, like finding another way is like an expression that's coming to mind right now.
Yeah, so maybe like
that's thought came to mind. It's like he's a janitor because he's trying to like make little differences rather than big differences. It's like he found a different way to help people rather than like being a big shot pilot. Being a janitor is like, it's not an irrelevant job. It's something someone's got to do. It's like, and having a janitor essentially get retrained as an assassin, there's a lot of the ideas of like just taking out the trash and different metaphors you could go through with that.
Instead of big ways like being a... Yeah, okay. Thank you. This is helping me a lot. And I think like maybe a bit more with the love interest. I think she's probably going to get further exploration into more of like a positive character arc in like future books. Like she is going to be a major character, but I think like her arc is a bit more like at the start of the story, she's kind of bitter about her lot in life.
Is the love interest? Did you say the love interest was the main villain, or did I get a wire across?
Main antagonist, yeah.
The Machiavellian and main antagonist with the giant sky mech?
Nope. No, she's the what you thought was the Demon King is actually the Demon Queen. Another Japanese trope. They like using Demon King, even though the Demon King can be female.
Yeah, so it's like you wouldn't call it a Demon King, you call it like a Demon Monarch, and it's just like,
yeah.
Oh, I assumed Monarch was a guy.
No. I think part of my joke is like everyone else calls her the Demon King, and then when the main character finds out, it's like, no, you're a queen.
Well, here's the thing. That's actually something in. Have either of you ever heard of the Enchanted Forest books?
No.
Well, basically, the idea is that the King of the Dragons can be a male or a female dragon. It's just an arbitrary title.
Yeah, I know in history a couple of times that happened where like I know there are some rulers of Egypt were female, but were not given the title of pharaoh. That number is like smaller, but there are some rulers. They kind of use like a queen regent during sometimes. It's very common when you have like they can sometimes give a different title. Yeah, but that I was thinking like bitter, and then just the beginning of like maybe there is some hope, especially with this man who's very different and somewhat similar to the last guy.
Okay, so the love interest / Demon King is not the same as the Machiavellian pilot of the Sky Mech?
No. She has similar traits of being a schemer, but not... in terms of contrast of like your main villain, my main villain contrasting with the heroes, yeah, he's definitely like the contrast of the scheming side with her. It's like he's super good. She tries her best. She's decent, but she's not that great. And because she has like rules, like she has some honor in her as opposed to the main villain who does not give a crap.
And the love interest is the one who isekai'd the janitor?
No, that's the teenage boy. Teenage boy right now.
Okay, so he's not a janitor yet.
No, the boy is the main character is a janitor at this point. He's an adult, but there's a third character, the boy. So the trio is, I'm calling right now, you got the janitor, the acolyte, and the demon queen. Essentially. Those are like the three main characters of the series. And they are all connected by one individual, which is the best friend.
And none of these are the Sky Pilot?
No. The Sky Mech is the total bad guy mech.
The final boss of the series. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The only for this one I'm thinking for side characters is the good a good ruler for in book 1 specifically. A good king that has some connection with the love interest. Not a familial connection, more thinking more like he defeated her, kind of was the one driving her away, but he still cares about her. Like it was like a close confidant who ends up betraying her because of she's getting a little crazy. And then I have the dwarf, who is probably going to be serving as the mentor fake role, but I'm not so keen of killing him off. At least in book 1, even though it is the most obvious thing.
Yeah, maybe the mentor could be relevant to how the janitor gets his mech.
Yeah, and also could be like the head guy. And I also, another twist in my series is about the dwarves, actually. I told Dunn about this, that the dwarves are actually still around. They're in that mountain range in the middle of that desert area, and they're based on Incas and Assyrians combined. And essentially, I'm thinking with like the final book, the main character ends up bringing an army of those people into the final conflict. And like a lot of answers are answered in that location. So I'm thinking of using the dwarf as a bit of foreshadowing of like this grander kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah, so like so far underground that is like all the political infighting going on isn't really relevant to them.
Essentially, they were used once to be the rulers of the world, but then they upset the big bad, and the big bad basically caused an apocalypse so bad it caused a big desert, and everyone thinks they're dead. And the reason the dwarves have not resurfaced is that they've been fighting the goblins for centuries until, again, the previous hero shows up and brokered a peace as his last act in the world. His last act is essentially whether most likely a self-sacrifice in some way, united the goblins and the dwarves into a new people. And that army basically setting up, giving more of the keys to our new hero to do the more greater thing of like freeing the entire world from its stagnation under this one guy. Like maybe like a theme of stagnation is probably the best way to describe it. Describe the theme of the story. Also, really love that Ares design. Got any other ideas?
It's like if Dunn's coming up on time limits, I don't think any that I would have time to get into.
Okay. You can always DM me if you have like a couple ideas.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I'm kind of like occupied on my own stuff. That this was a lot of stuff that I was like, you were wanting to really trigger my switches, but
yeah, I am super excited. Like, I'm treating this as like, this is going to be my first project. I want to get this done so I can get some writing experience. And then, because I don't want to go into the more deep and the more deeper stories, quote unquote, until I get my skills up.
Yeah, you say that now, and then you fall in love with the story, and then the story gets deep on its own.
Yeah, it will become deep on its own way, but my main goal is to have a bit more of like a fun idea. That's why it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to go much into detail in the world as.
Yeah, you say that now.
Well, yeah. Well, if that happens, I will release it as like a lore book. Like, here's the lore of the world. Do what George R. R. Martin should have done. Finish his story and then release the lore book.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking more Silmarillion.
Well, yeah, and J.R.R. Tolkien does that. Like at this rate, I'm pretty sure George R. R. Martin's just gonna die and somebody else is gonna finish his book.
I don't even think it's gonna be that. I think he's just going to die, and nobody's gonna finish it.
It's like, damn it, this is Berserk all over again.
Well, at least for Berserk, they have Gitara Mira's friend is overseeing the leftover notes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, George R. R. Martin isn't going to do that. He's just saying, like, if it dies with me. That was my understanding of the situation.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason. Like, new chapters are being made with Berserk right now, and it's based on those notes. And Gitara Miro did had a team of artists with his final chapters, so at least the art will be, even though it will never be as good as under Mira, it will be a lot higher quality than it could have been. Hey, and at least the ending will probably be more consistent than Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's like I've heard a lot of fan theories for Game of Thrones that people thought that essentially the winner should have been the Night King.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying like that would have been.
It definitely would have been a twist.
Yeah, it would have been subverting our expectations. Though I don't think it would be. I think it would be just as bad though, but for different reasons. Because it's like, it's kind of not satisfying that that all the characters that you grew and watch over the years backstabbing each other ends up losing. There's no winner other than the third-party big bad.
Yeah, but it's like sort of the idea is that it's like you may have liked the characters, but let's be honest, they were dicks, and so they're being punished as such. So
Okay.
yeah, it sounds like Dunn is hitting his time limit.
Yeah, I gotta get going. I got some
Alright.
podcasts to be on, so I'll have to see you guys later. Hopefully this was helpful. Sorry we can spend more time.
Oh,
on
of course.
Yeah, maybe we can
I'm happy
revisit
with what we
this.
worked on. I'm happy what we worked on. So
Cool.
All right. Well, see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.
see you around.